Forget a Wookiee with a lightsaber. We actually have a Wookiee with a metal detector. Welcome back. We now have the Acolyte episode 7. The episode was titled Choice. Let's break it down. I'll give you my thoughts. So the episode starts off very similar to episode 3. Not my favorite Acolyte episode, actually my least favorite. And this one is just the other side of the coin for episode 3. So we start off 16 years ago on Brendok, which is that planet where May and Osha are from with their coven of witches. But we start off on the Jedi perspective. So Torben, Indara, Sol, and Kelnaka are all going through the forest on Brendok. Kelnaka has a metal detector. They're looking for a vergence. Essentially, this planet was like nothing because of a hyperspace disaster, but all of a sudden it's lush and there's life. So that's why they're there. They're trying to find a vergence that could create life. Now, kind of see where this is going here. But as they go through hunting whatever it is they're looking for, Sol comes across May and Osha, which is where it starts to overlap with episode 3. So he finds them at that tree that we saw them at previously, and he snoops really hard. Like he follows them all the way back to their little mountain compound. He actually scales the entire wall like Princess Bride style. He climbs up the whole thing, spies on them there, ends up taking all that information that he gets from spying on them, takes it back to Indara, who is leading this mission. Actually calls them Night Sisters. You know, he's talking about witches. They might be Night Sisters, but they kind of talk themselves out of that because they don't line up with the Night Sisters that we know in Star Wars canon. But essentially the decision is Indara is going to go take care of whatever the situation is back with the Coven of Witches, but Sol talks her into letting all of them go, which really not a great decision. We get some overlap with the scene where they're doing like the ritual with May and Osha. We get Torben really get messed up by Mother Anastasia. We see what's going on in his head from in episode 3 where he's sitting there like with the black eyes. We kind of figure out what's going on in his head there. She's really messing with him. But we go from there, jumps to the Jedi testing scene for the twins for May and Osha. We learn that Sol is kind of fudging the numbers on this test. So May, she knows what she wants to do with this test. She's been told not to pass, so we know what happens with her, but she kind of lets him in on the behind the scenes of what's going on with these witches and this ritual known as the Ascension. But then we get to Osha's test and we see Sol kind of influencing her. He's talking her in to wanting to be a Jedi. He knows what she wants, and he just kind of leads her along the way. So he's almost manipulating this situation. They get their midi-chlorians back, no surprise. They're like off the charts, which is kind of what we expected. Send all this information to the council. The council shoots it down. They're not taking these twins because they're too old or whatever. We don't really know exactly what Indara said, but the council shoots it down. Sol is not happy. He wants a Padawan. He wants Osha as a Padawan. They also kind of learn through this testing and the midichlorian count that they were artificially created through this vergence. It's kind of just explained away in a few sentences, but they do learn that something fishy was going on with how these twins came to be. Torben, again, kind of loses it because he really wants to go back to Coruscant, so he like jets off to the compound to steal the twins, so Sol has to go chase him down, but then they both end up going up to the compound for the witches to steal the twins. While this is going on, we learn Mother Anastasia is gonna let Osha go, or at least she wants to, and May, I guess, is going to stay. And so Coral, which is the Zabrak Dathomir witch that's kind of hard to deal with, not a big fan of her, she kind of instigates May and all the other witches into a fight with the Jedi and to just doing really dumb things. Like this is one group of people, the Jedi, doing dumb things, and Coral and the witches doing dumb things on the other side. That's kind of what's going on in this episode, which leads to May accidentally setting the whole place on fire. We learned that she wasn't really meaning to do that, just kind of happened. I don't know what she thought was going to happen when she lit things on fire, but apparently she didn't want to burn everything down, even though she did. On the other side of things, we see the witches kind of starting a fight. Soul ends up killing Mother Anastasia. She was doing like a Fantastic Beast type thing, kind of like Credence on Fantastic Beast, if you're aware, but she kind of like dissipates into this black smoke, and that's when Soul stabs her. Then Soul starts fighting Coral, but she's not really much of a match for him. He's handling her pretty well. He's not even using his saber. But then I think this was probably the coolest part of the episode. Spoiler alert, I didn't care for the episode that much, but this was probably the coolest part. Coral does the same little like dissipation thing, kind of like the Harry Potter stuff, but she possesses Kelnaka, and then he fights Soul and Torben. So we do finally see the Wookiee with a lightsaber, which is what I've wanted this whole time. So we see that action. Now, again, a Wookiee with a lightsaber, he's kind of stiff. Like, it's a 7-foot dude in a suit, so don't know what we would have expected any differently. But we see Torben and Soul fighting Kelnaka. Really cool to see a Wookiee wielding a lightsaber. That's all I'll say about that. But it was really cool. Indara finally shows up. She frees Kelnaka. When she does, I guess Coral dies and all the witches die as well. Maybe I missed something there. Let me know in the comments, but that was strange. Either way, she frees Kelnaka of this possession from Coral. Then we have Soul going to try to save the twins. So this is kind of like the diverging path that is really a lot different than what we saw in episode 3. He's using the Force to hold up May and Osha over that expanse, I guess the big hole in the ground. And essentially Soul chooses to let May go, and he saves Osha, which is just absolutely terrible. Like it shows how far off these Jedi are. And he just lets May fall supposedly to her death, saves Osha. Jedi kidnap another kid. They get her on the ship and get her out of there. At this point on the ship, this is where the cover-up starts happening. So Indara tells them exactly what they're going to do. They're not going to be honest with the council. They're going to be kind of honest. They're just going to say, hey, May started a fire. Everybody died. We saved Osha. Now, that is true from a certain point of view, which is very much Star Warsy, but that's a lie. That's a cover up. Soul says he's got to own up to what he did wrong, and Indara says, why would you do that? Osha's already lost everything. Her dream is to be a Jedi, so you being honest is going to steal that dream from her. So he just perpetuates a 16-year lie, essentially. So that's what we learn here. My thoughts on the episode personally, I didn't like episode 3, so I also don't care for this episode so much in terms of comparing it to the other Acolyte episodes. It was probably better than episode 3 just because it gives us a whole picture, but I am not into these full flashback episodes. That's just me. If you do like it, that's fine. I'm not bashing on the show for what like a lot of the haters are bashing on the show over. I'm just not a big fan of this type of episode. Like, give us the whole story and let's move on and have more content. That's just my opinion. But it was cool to see Kelnaka with a lightsaber. Really excited about that because that's something I've wanted to see. We get the full picture. So again, we kind of know a little bit more. But keep in mind, this is episode 7. We only have one episode left, and we went back 16 years and did not move the story forward. So they got to wrap it up next week. Maybe it'll be a long episode. I don't know. I was really excited going into this episode, and now I'm just not sure how they're going to land the plane. But my hopes, I guess, are still high. We'll see. I've enjoyed this series as a whole, so just not a big fan of episode 3 or episode 7. Let me know what you thought about this in the comments. And before we go, I wanted to let you know that thanks to your support, I now have channel memberships. So if you are interested in joining as a channel member at $2.99 a month, I will link that below. You can click on that and see all the benefits that will come with it. No pressure, but thank you so much for making that possible. As always, I'll catch you next time.